Hey everybody, Bonehead from the Bonehead Podcast, and welcome to Special Teams Sunday. Every week we get together and we have a look at some of the most interesting unofficial teams in Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl, straight up, probably the best tabletop game out there. There's 29 teams that you can play at a tournament right now, but there are so many more ways to get great Blood Bowl to your pitch. So we're having a look at some of the other teams that are pretty decent to get to the table. Now, last week we looked at the Savage Orc team. We've been on a bit of a frenzy at the moment. And that team was from Fumble. But Games Workshop dropped an app 2-3 years ago, maybe even 4 or 5 years ago now, called the My Dugout app. It was this one here. And within that were some experimental teams. One of them was an Imperial Nobility team, which has now in part formed the Nobility team that we've seen in this edition. Now, in there was also a Savage Orc team. So this gives us a cool way to look at, actually, Savage Orcs from Fumble. Now we can have a look at the Savage Orc team that Games Workshop put out as an experimental rule set, which might give us a little bit of an insight into perhaps some of the future of Blood Bowl. So the Savage Orc roster here is very similar to the Games Workshop Orc roster, which all makes sense when you think that they are orcs, and it's also made by Games Workshop. But there are a few cool twists. So the Savage Orc Lineman are 60k a piece, that's 10k more than the standard orcs, and yes, they come with Frenzy. We got 0 to 4 Blitzers and 0 to 4 Brutes. So the Blitzers are Blitzers, they've got Block. And they've got Frenzy. Now the Brutes here are probably the biggest deviation from the Fumble Savage Orc team to this one here. Now these are Black Orcs of old, and they do not have Frenzy. So that changes up this roster compared to the last one. The last roster was like, everybody's got Frenzy, good luck. Now you've got Frenzy dudes who are Strength 3, and you've got non-Frenzy Strength 4 dudes with bad agility. So it's a really interesting mix here. Now you've got 0 to 2 throwers who have got Pass and Nerves of Steel, actually, which is pretty cool. I was going to say, and no useful skills. Sure Hands is going to be pretty useful, but you've got to earn it to get it, which is interesting as well. There's 0 to 1 Swamp Trolls here at the old cost of 130k, and their rerolls are really cheap for a Frenzy team at 50k a piece. That means building the roster is a little bit easier for you. So we've got good Blitzers, we've got good Strength big dudes, we've got some Throwers. Let's have a look in more detail at the positionals. And we'll start with the Lineman. So the Savage Orc Lineman here, 60k, movement 5, strength 3, edge 3, armor 8. These rules are from the 2016 edition of Blood Bowl, so no passing stat, and things work ever so slightly differently. Now, what they do have is Frenzy. So if you think about this to an Orc, as it is now, an Orc Lineman 50k, armor 9. These guys are 60k, but they come with Frenzy. But the biggest change here, and that's what makes this team really interesting from a design point of view, no general skills on their linemen, only strength. Now, when you are a frenzy heavy team, you want guard. You want a ton of guard, but you also want block too. So the fact they can take guard but can't take block makes it really interesting, and I really hope that this team gets introduced in Blood Bowl 2020 and that we keep that on, because then it becomes, I can save to 6 and take a random general. It becomes a really interesting dynamic. Now, all frenzy, no block means that the Savage Orc roster starts brewing up these linemen. They don't get kick, they don't get tackle, they don't get stuff like that. What they will do is start spamming guard and mighty blow, and that's what this team is all about, is getting in a brawl and crumping some stuff. And good for crumping is the block skill, and we've got 0 to 4 Blitzers. These guys are 90k a piece, movement 6, strength 3, edge 3, armor 8, block and Frenzy. So these are just Orc Blitzers, but they start with Frenzy in lieu of an extra point of armor. That is a very cool build. Movement 6, plenty fast. Edge 3, plenty good. Block and Frenzy, plenty good for crumping Orc style. So general and strength means that these guys can become your Blitzers. They can become your removal pieces, okay? All the Muggles have Frenzy and stuff. They get some guard for you. These guys run around. They get Mighty Blow. They've got Frenzy. This becomes a delete piece, all right? Block. You're throwing 4 die Frenzy Blitzes. This is awesome. This is where these guys start getting really good. And because they've got that Edge 3, or Edge 3 Plus as it is now, they can do all the ball handling that you require. And because they've got General, where your linemen do not have General, They become quite tempting from a sure hands point of view, but if you are already frenzy block, you've got to put a really good argument together not to give these guys Mighty Blow or Tackle. Tackle to make them great safeties, Mighty Blow to just delete stuff. Huge potential in these players. Okay, so the Linemen and the Blitzers all have Frenzy. That's going to mean that you are blocking into situations that you may not want to sometimes. It's important on a frenzy-heavy team to pick out the players that don't have frenzy so that you can kind of start building your strategy around them. Now, what we've got here are Black Orcs, basically. 0 to 4 Brutes, 80k apiece, Movement 4, Strength 4, Edge 2, Armor 8, Thick Skull. So they're a little bit softer than Black Orcs when it comes to the armor, but they've got that resilience in Thick Skull. And from playing 2020, which I appreciate is a different edition, Thick Skull on Goblins is great. Thick Skulls on Brutes, awesome. So you get Strength 4 pieces without frenzy. So in a world where everybody's got frenzy, being able to make a 2-die block safely to your choice is actually going to be massive. These are going to be the bulwark around what everything else happens. Now these guys, Brutes with just strength access, they're going straight to Guardsville, all right, because one of these guys in a great situation allows everybody else to just frenzy around them. They're going to be basically mini roundabouts of death, which is wonderful, and they will be able to just take a 2-die block wherever they want. They don't even have to follow up, and believe me, if you're playing a frenzy heavy team, the ability to just go, I'm going to stay where I am is incredible. So these guys are going to be absolutely huge for this roster, and this is also where I think the biggest deviation came compared to the Fumble team is that those guys had Strength 4 Frenzy, which I blimmin' love, but actually the ability to not have Frenzy on a few key pieces is really useful. You can give them Frenzy, but you got to save up. No, you can't do that, Ben. You got to roll a double in this edition. In the future, I think it might be. You can give them Frenzy, you just got a long way to go. No general skills means that they are going to be a strength hub. That's why Guard, I think, works so well, as does Grab. For the rest of your team, not going to be able to take it. So Brutes, I like these. They fit in the team really well. Alright, so we got some throwers as well. So 0 to 2 of these. 70k, movement 5, slow, but that's fine. Strength 3, Edge 3, Armor 7. Frenzy, Nerves of Steel, and Pass. Really interesting positional. Now, we'll come back to why I think the skill set's so important in a second. Frenzy and Nerves of Steel and Pass. It's clever. It's a clever grouping of skills. They want your thrower to get involved, to be throwing stuff around, to be throwing punches, but also give them the opportunity of throwing the ball without penalty. It's a very clever way to do it. And it means that your Savage Orc functions basically the same as a Lineman, but also has Pass. It's clever. With Edge 3, you shouldn't be passing all the time anyway, but that Nerves of Steel means that your Savage Orc can get stuck in. It can be the support. It can be just involved in the brawl. It can go on a frenzy brawl, and then if it needs to pick up the ball, it can. I really like that. Let's talk about what they're there to do. So the Linemen, strength access only. These guys, general access. So 0 to 2 throwers is not something you'll normally see in an Orc team, but they are your only reliable access to more block. They're your only reliable access to sure hands, and they can take leader as well. So I think almost 1 or 2 throwers are going to be super important for this team because it's they're just your most reliable players, and it's only 10k more than a Lineman. The lack of sure hands hurts them a bit. Nerves of Steel means that they're going to be quite good at scoring because you're going to be able to go for a stretch play. You're going to be able to hand off, and then they can blitz very effectively with that frenzy. It's going to be like the 2000s Buccaneers running game when it comes to these guys. Frenzy, Nerves of Steel, they're catching the ball on 3+, and then with a bit of support, they're 4-die blocking their way into the end zone. That is not to be sniffed at. And talking of things not to be sniffed at, I would imagine that a Swamp Troll would be pretty high on that list. They have a Swamp Troll. So 130k, strength only access, 5519, gives you standard troll things. Actually, it's a bit faster than a standard troll at movement 5. Loner, always hungry, mighty blow, really stupid, regeneration, throw teammate. Throw teammate, always hungry, not going to be useful unless you take a stunty star. What they do is no frenzy, so this also gives you another high strength piece. Oh my gosh, I'm going to say it. That's almost reliable, okay? And that allows this roster to be 2 separate builds. You can go frenzy heavy. You can go 4 blitzers, linemen, throwers, and just frenzy the heck out of your opponent. Or you can go 4 brutes and a troll, and you've got 6 frenzy dudes running around, supported by just 5 2-die blocks a turn. It's a very good bit of cleanse. Now we saw the Troglodyte on the Fumble team and didn't necessarily fit in. The Swamp Troll doesn't necessarily fit in. What it does do is it gives you a reliable, like I said, a Bastion. Just one player that is going to stay in place. It's going to get punched, it's going to survive, and it's going to punch back. And starting out with Mighty Blow is going to be really useful. Over time, get Guard on this thing, and it's going to be great. You're going to put it on the line with 2 Frenzy pieces, and those Frenzy pieces are just going to make 4 die blocks for days. And I think that's the other thing here that's potentially a little bit underrated when it comes to a troll or a big guy in a Frenzy unit, is they're not going anywhere. They're going to get back up if they get knocked down, and that Guard is just so easy for them to provide extra efficiency for the team around them, and every now and again they'll get a nice bit of Mighty Blow removal as well. Okay, so we've looked at all the players, we've looked at the rosters. Let's have a look at a build. So my idea of a starting roster for this is TV 1000, so no spare cash. You've got 2 linemen, 4 brutes, 3 blitzers, 2 throwers, and 3 rerolls. 3 rerolls, if you can take them, are going to be really useful. We're thinking league for this, so actually this is going to save you 50k to add it again later, because obviously they're going to become 100k once you start your season off. But where you're making so many frenzy blocks, those dice are going to come in handy because there's not a lot of block here. Now, when it comes to block, you have a choice. You can't actually take 4 blitzers without dropping a brute and a thrower. So I like having both those throwers in there because of their general access, given that your lineman can't have it. So if you want to get more block, if you want to get sure hands, or if you want to go for that 4th reroll via leader, you can put it on the thrower when it gets there. So both those throwers, really important. The price you pay is dropping one of your block pieces early. However, having 4 non-frenzy strength 4 pieces in this roster means that you are going to have some very good options when it comes to punching dudes and running at dudes. Those brutes being movement 5 means that actually you've got some strength 4, movement 5 blitzers if you need to. They're going to get 2 dice most of the time. They're not going to have that block. So you've got the 3 blitzers who get block, and then what it does do is, because you start with that reroll, you've got 2 throwers that can become your ball carriers. Okay, one gets block, one gets sure hands. Fantastic. Block guy then takes leader deeper into the season. And you can then buy that blitzer instead of the reroll. So for 90k you get your blitzer versus 100k for that extra reroll. It just makes more logical sense long term. But I think I'd rather have those 4 dudes without block that are going to be more reliable. I think it's just going to help the team overall. And I wouldn't want to give up the throwers here because they're your only access to general skills, basically. It's a very clever build concern. So the standard dudes, they're going to get guard on a double block, is great for them. The brutes can't get block, so block on a double is awesome for them, but guard Mighty Blow is a great route. The blitzers themselves, guard Mighty Blow is a great route, and those throwers, block, sure hands, leader, are your everything. So it's a really cool roster that has to force you to think differently, and it's going to be a very similar play experience on the floor. It just feels like half Khorne, half Orcs, and that is something I am super behind. Alright, so when it comes to buying and putting this team together, everything I said last week about the Savage Orc team from Fumble totally applies here. 1 box of these guys that are called Bone Splitters Boys. They're Savage Orcs, right? Box of 20. You need 14 players. You want some brutes, you make them bigger. You give them taller bases, you chuck on some extra armor. You want blitzers, you give them spikes. Like, with a bit of clever conversion, you can easily separate your team out here, or just use Black Orcs for your brutes, basically, and then it gives you a cool way to do some stuff. Now, we've got some spear throwing arms and things here, which should be pretty easy to convert a hand to have a ball so that you've got that look to them. Now, what I am going to do is get a box of these and make a Savage Orc team, a Savage Orc dugout team, and a Khorne team out of it, because the positional breakdown is just very similar. I should be able to use it as a standard Orc team as well. I use Black Orcs as the big dudes because they're just such good models. Why would you not? Although the brutes from AOS actually are pretty fun. That would be pretty fun. 4 of those brutes, these guys with some conversion to be your linemen. You could use them for standard Orcs, you could use them for Khorne, you could use them for the Savage Orc teams. That's a pretty good bundle. I mean, that's a lot of models, and it's a lot of flexibility, and it's a pretty cool project. I think that might have to be my next project. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap up now. That is the first of our My Dugout teams, because I think there is a very good chance Games Workshop goes this route at some point with a team. and I'd kind of like to be ahead of it because it's just too much fun. Anyway, in the comments, let me know what you think about this team, this app, what's in the future for Blood Bowl, because I just absolutely flipping love it. Anyway guys, I'm going to disappear. Thank you ever so much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy Frenzy Savage Orc blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content, we get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.